Well, Homeland Security Chief Michael Chertoff yesterday told Congress that U.S. Border Patrol officers recently found something strange with the U.S. border in Mexico. It was a wire. It was stretched about 4 feet off of a road that, when pulled tight, would have likely decapitated any border agent riding an all-terrain vehicle. Sounds like a pretty good story, huh? Sounds like a pretty big story. Yeah, you probably haven't heard about it because yesterday Congress and the media were a little busy dealing with something else. Roger Clemens on steroids. We asked the Heritage Foundation, how much did this cost the American people? They estimated that it was almost $1 million that was spent out of your purse yesterday in that 4.5-hour sham of a hearing. That includes research time for the congressional staffers, prep time for the committee members, and, of course, the entire hearing itself, where middle-aged politicians finally got to live out their dream of having their pictures taken with a Major League Baseball player. I'm glad to see that in a country facing the most serious issues in our nation's history, our leaders believe that spending their time questioning a washed-up pitcher about something he may or may not have done years ago when it was legal is doing the people's business. Now, if you were serious about turning our economy around, then I got a great idea. Try this one on for size. See what you think. I say we take about 12 million of our poorest citizens, you know, the uneducated, and we encourage them to sneak across our northern border at night and go to Canada and get a job there and live free off the Canadian health care and get a free education through their school system and then ship those earnings back here for their families to spend in our economy. Wouldn't that be great? That sounds familiar. Mexican President Felipe Calderon is now touring the U.S. right now. He's telling anybody who will listen to him that a thriving Mexican economy is the best way to end illegal immigration. You know what? You're right, but I don't know how you exactly want to get there. People who have good jobs, nice homes, especially if those homes are in places with nice weather, generally stick around. But I want to show you what's actually happening. The real story is, you ready? Economic conditions that have been driving millions of Mexicans north are starting to reverse themselves as we deal with trillions in unpaid entitlements because of the weasels in Washington. It's caused a falling dollar. Mexico may finally be starting to turn things around. They had the largest increase in new jobs in their nation's history last year, a 25% increase in foreign investment, and perhaps most importantly, a lower inflation rate than we did for the first time in history. It all points to Mexico potentially being, are you sitting down, a net importer of labor in the coming decades. We may be sneaking across their border. Americans may someday be looking to Mexico for employment. And if that sounds insane, well, let me ask you this. 30 years ago, do you think our parents would have ever believed that American jobs would be replaced by people in India? A lot can change, and it can happen like that. You know I'm a huge supporter of fences with an S. Both of our borders, north and south. It's a security thing. You know what? The way things are going, it may be Canada and Mexico who want those fences more than we do. Leonardo Martinez Diaz is a political economy fellow at the Brookings Institute. Leonardo, is what's happening in Mexico real and lasting, or is it just a fluke that it's getting better?
Well, Glenn, I think the first thing to remember is that the Mexican and the American economies are jogging together. They're really tightly connected. And so things look good right now, but they could also change. Remember, 85% of Mexican exports come here to the U.S. 65% of their investment is American investment. And $20 billion, as you pointed out, of money, of dollars, from the U.S. Goes to Mexico every year from workers working in the U.S. So the two economies are very closely linked. And if we slow down, they will slow down as well. So the idea that the Mexican economy will by itself become prosperous without our help and our own participation will not happen.
But isn't this the case, Leonardo? Isn't that the very case that some of us have been saying, that the lifeboat is only so big, and you've got to at some point push away from the Titanic and say, wait a minute, we can only save so many, because if we sink the lifeboat, we all drown. In many ways, we are the lifeboat. And just an unending wave of people coming in and taking our services is going to sink the lifeboat, and that hurts Mexico as much as it does us.
It's true. Mexico is losing some of its, a lot of its young people, almost 10% of its total population, if you think about it, and that's certainly bad for an economy. But think of yourself as sitting, you're 25-year-old Mexican sitting in a central Mexican state. You have maybe a wife and 2 kids. You're looking around. You don't have an education. You don't see much future around you. The industries around you don't really work or provide much opportunity. What are you going to do? You have several options. You can stay in Mexico and maybe find somewhere else in Mexico to migrate to internally. That's not very easy because credit is not easy. You can't just pick up and go that easily. There's the U.S. option, but then you have to think about, well, how long do I want to stay there? What am I going to do? How much is it going to cost to cross the border? Is it going to be dangerous? So the hope is that by improving the Mexican economy, we'll be able to help people in that position to stay in Mexico, and then that way
you're not suggesting by any stretch of the imagination that we send them some sort of relief package more than we already have. Right?
Look, relief is not going to do it. So short-term quick fixes are not going to help. What is needed is a long-term development plan. That's what this president is talking about, and that's quite refreshing. Yeah. But let's not be under any illusions. It's not going to happen overnight.
I'd like business to do that and let the governments stay out of it. Leonardo, thanks very much. That is The Real Story.